Welcome to a Week 2 edition of the Blitz. I'm Stormy Buonantony. Colorado State and UTSA face off this weekend in Fort Collins. It's a game you can see exclusively on the Mountain West Network on Campus Insiders. To get you prepped for the game, we're going to talk to expert insiders from both teams, play-by-play broadcasters Brian Roth of Colorado State and Andy Everett of UTSA. Let's start with you, Brian. The Rams played two quarterbacks in week 1. Nick Stevens got the start, had the proven track record with a pretty successful 2015 season, but unable to get anything moving offensively for the Rams in week 1. Graduate transfer Fatone Bauta steps in and gets the only scoring drive of the game, and on Monday is named the starter. I'm curious your thoughts on the quarterback situation and what Fatone Bauta is going to have to do to maintain that starting job moving forward.
Well, let's first say that when Fatone Bauta scored that touchdown and led the Rams offense and ran for a 24-yard run, which ended up being the biggest run of the game, biggest play of the game for Colorado State, that thing was over. And Colorado had some of their second teamers in there. So I liked what Fatone Bauta was able to come in and do. I thought he provided him a little bit of a spark and a little bit of another dynamic running the football. And that was a game that had already been really played out and seriously was over. So, Nick Stevens, you have to feel for him a little bit. Goes 6 of 20 in the game, 2 interceptions, took a couple sacks. And it was just one of those games where Colorado State didn't look like they were very confident on the offensive side of the ball. And a lot of times, listen, the quarterback is going to shoulder a bunch of that blame. But let's say that offensive line that we were talking so much about coming into the season, they didn't necessarily do their jobs either. The wide receivers really never got open. So, yeah, you see the change at quarterback. Fatone Bauta will make the start, but that game, it goes across the board when you dole out the blame. It's going to be a defense, offense, every position, coaching staff. I mean, there's plenty to go around.
And I know Coach Bowo said after the game that he was going to go with the guy that he thought would give them the best chance moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see what Fatone can put together. Defensively, replacing 8 starters is no easy task. Had a lot of trouble with defending the pass last week as well. How is that group going to need to improve upon that this week against UTSA?
Well, quarterback's not going to be the only change in the lineups that Mike Bobo and his staff are going to make. At defensive back, they'll make a change. Jordan Vaden, who got the start again. Remember, he was a guy who transitioned from wide receiver to defensive back in the spring, got the starting nod against Colorado. Well, he will not be starting against UTSA on Saturday. That'll be Kevin Nutt Jr. So, again, they're trying to figure some things out here. But the Colorado game, it was simple. Buffaloes came out, they played up-tempo, really never had to get into a third down, never slowed down, and that Ram defense was on their heels the entire first half, could never really ever able to catch their breath. And, I think you saw a lot of that inexperience that was shining through, and I think you have to give Colorado a little bit of credit, in fact, a lot of credit for what they were able to do. There were a couple of bright spots. I thought Jacob Buys played well in the defensive line. He's a kid they're going to have to count on. On the back end, Jake Slager was okay, and then Kevin Davis was just the stalwart, 19 tackles for Colorado State. They're going to need more than just Kevin Davis. He was a stud. Going to need some other guys step up around him.
It'll be interesting to see how all those changes play out. Thanks so much for your time, Brian. Have a good call.
All right, thanks, Stormy.
We now welcome in the voice of UTSA football, Andy Everett, who joins us from San Antonio, Texas. The Roadrunners fresh off Frank Wilson's first victory as a college head coach, topping Alabama State in week 1. How about the quarterback play of Dalton Sturm? Threw for 274 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, another one more than half the distance of the field on his feet. For a guy that didn't know he was going to be starting until the morning of game day, a pretty impressive 2016 debut.
Yeah, it was. I think Dalton's really answered a lot of the critics. He was thrust into playing for UTSA 2 years ago when he wasn't ready. They basically ran out of players, and he had to play, and it was baptism by fire. And even last year, with a makeshift offensive line at times, he wasn't protected nearly enough to really have the success that he needed. What I think we see is a very mature quarterback who has learned from what he's experienced in the last couple of seasons when he's had to play. The speed of the game doesn't bother him like it did. And I think that's one of the things that he was very calm and collective. And there was nothing that Alabama State did in that game that he wasn't ready for. And so I think they were very excited to see the way that he performed.
On the other side of the ball, defense had a school record 6 sacks last week, which was great. But for the successes that this team had, also a lot of mistakes. 8 penalties, 3 turnovers inside the 25, missed extra points. Is there any form of emphasis on fixing those errors moving forward, especially against the Rams?
Absolutely. And one of the things that coaches love is to win and then still have things that they can go work on and say, hey, we got to go fix this. And they got plenty of things to practice this week. All they got to do is break down that game tape. On at least 3 of those 4 turnovers, UTSA would have had a chance to score. Once they were in the red zone, once they were close to the red zone, once they were down around the goal line when they had a fumble. So they really feel like they could have added 15 to 20 more points if they had not turned the ball over. You mentioned the defense, and I think this is going to be a very exciting defense to watch this year. They come from everywhere. You never know where the blitz is coming from. They blitz the end sometimes. They back them off in protection. They'll blitz from the edge with the corners, the safeties. The linebackers, Josiah Toefa is a freshman, and he got 13 tackles in the game against Alabama State all over the ball. So I think you're going to see a very excited UTSA defense this year.
Looking forward to watching it. Thanks for your time, Andy, and safe travels to Fort Collins.
Thank you.
Colorado State and UTSA kick off at Hughes Stadium at 2:05 Mountain Time on Saturday, September 10th. Here's how you can watch the game. Log on to csurams.com, themw.com, or campusinsiders.com. It's a Mountain West Network on Campus Insiders exclusive game, so make sure to tune in. From the Mountain West Network studio, I'm Stormy Buonantony.